Hey there guys, I'm Tom Gillard, welcome back to my movie channel and thank you very much for joining me for this, my review of Captain America Civil War. You know, Black Panther coming out towards the end of this week and I'm really excited for that film, so I thought, why not review Captain America Civil War, the film that Black Panther first appeared in his big on-screen debut, Chadwick Boseman playing the character. This is going to be a spoiler-heavy review. You've had enough time to see If you haven't seen Captain America Civil War, I don't know what you've been doing for the last year and a half. See Captain America Civil War, but this is going to be a spoiler review. I'm not going to review it in any particular order of when things take place in the film. I'm just going to go through, talk about some of my favorite things, and then talk about some of the things that I don't like so much about this movie. As you can see, I do have the Blu-ray back here. It's very nice. Civil War is my favorite Marvel Cinematic Universe movie to date. Depending on which day you ask me, I might say Thor Ragnarok, but Civil War by far is the better film. I just had so much fun with Thor Ragnarok. But anyway, Captain America Civil War, I freaking love this movie. Directed by Joe and Anthony Russo, who did Captain America the Winter Soldier, and I really enjoyed that film. I'm one of these crazy people that think Civil War is better than the Winter Soldier. I think Civil War is just awesome, and I freaking love it. It's my favorite. And going into Civil War, you know, when it first opened, I was a bit cautious. I was like, you know, they're putting all these Avengers in it, and is this going to be a Captain America movie? Because they're calling it Captain America Civil War, and I was really happy that it is centrally focused on the character of Captain America. It's not an Avengers movie. They're in it, they have an important role, but it's a small role compared to, you know, it's following Cap's story and mostly focused from Cap's perspective. But they also did a really good job with the Tony Stark character. You know, for lack of a better term, you could consider him the antagonist of the film. But throughout the movie, most people, and including myself, I switched sides going in, you know, through the movie. You know, in one scene, I was like, yep, I'm behind Captain America. And the next scene, I was like, yep, I'm behind Tony Stark. Now listen, I went in being Team Cap. I came out and I thought about it. I went, no, I'm Team Cap. I'm proud to be on Team Cap. I'm not ashamed about that at all. Team Cap. Actually, funny story, the two friends that I went to see Civil War with were both Team Iron Man, and I was like, I don't know if I want to sit next to you two. This movie destroyed friendships is basically what I'm getting at there. And you get the big, giant location titles, where it says present day, or, you know, London or Queens when that popped up, you know. And at first, when I first saw, on first viewing of this film, I was like, I don't know how I feel about the giant text coming up. You know, normally when text appears on the screen in a movie to tell you where you are in the world, it's, you know, down the bottom in the corner, and it's not really that intrusive. And I was like, I don't know how I feel about this. And the more I watched it, I was like, no, this makes sense, because the film is almost broken up into chapters. And you need those, the giant titles pretty much symbolize the end of the previous chapter, if you will, in the film. And then also it does serve as the payoff, so that when you get to Queens, anybody who's even slightly clued into comic books will know what that means. And speaking of that entire opening scene, let's talk about the progression of Scarlet Witch as a character in this film. You know, in Avengers Age of Ultron, I wasn't the biggest fan of the two twins, the Maximoff twins. I thought, oh, these weird fake accents, they're just off. Elizabeth Olsen was always better than, what's his name? Aaron Taylor-Johnson during doing those accents. And I was like, I don't really care about these characters. I didn't think they should have brought them into the film, and they felt kind of forced into Avengers Age of Ultron. But in this film, they really develop Scarlet Witch, and I really enjoyed that. At the beginning of the film, you know, Cap and Black Widow and Falcon, they're kind of training her. She is the youngest Avenger at that point, and she's a new Avenger, so she's still learning how this all works. And I love that, you know, they spent time training her and seeing how she's going to progress throughout the film and throughout the rest of the MCU. Speaking of some more character progression, I cannot talk anymore about any character without mentioning Tony Stark. Tony Stark, you know, in his first scene in this film, I thought it was a fourth wall break, that entire speech he gives at the school, at the university. And I was like, that's a fourth wall break. And then it was like, oh no, he's actually like showing you a thing and he's talking over it. And then when he gets to the elevator and that woman talking about her son dying in Sokovia from the events of Age of Ultron, that scene, this is Robert Downey Jr.'s best acting performance as Tony Stark that he has ever given. At the point of filming this video anyway, I haven't seen Infinity War yet. This is the best performance as Tony Stark Robert Downey Jr. has ever given. It is the most layered, it is the most complex. He has the best dialogue in this film that I think the character's ever had. And the character's always been really well written, but the dialogue in this film and his motivations are so clear and so emotional, and you can see why he would be on the side that he was. That's why this film is so impactful, I think. Especially to me, is like, you can clearly understand Captain America's motivation, and you can clearly understand Tony Stark's motivation. You understand it both, you almost agree with both of them at the same time. And I know some people who are like, I cannot pick a side, man. I cannot pick a side. I agree with both of them, and I had to pick a side. I couldn't not pick a side. I picked Captain America. I'm taking Captain America. But that doesn't take away from Tony Stark and Iron Man in this film. You needed this conflict to happen. And I freaking love Robert Downey Jr.'s performance in this film. Let's talk about Vision. I want to talk about Vision a little bit. We'll get to Black Panther in a second, but I want to talk about Vision for a little bit because he was introduced in Age of Ultron. He was kind of forced in there, like a lot of things in that film. And I like Paul Bettany very much as an actor, and I thought, oh, that's inspired casting him as the Vision. He was Jarvis, now he's Vision. That's really, really cool. He cracked me up in this movie. His first scene in the film where he comes through the door, but the door was open, so I assumed that, never mind. Like, that whole thing, that was hilarious, and him trying to cook. It's like, Vision in this film, it just took it to another level. It's very funny. He does have some, dramatic stuff in this film too. He plays an important role, but he was mostly used for some comic relief here and there, and I really, really enjoyed seeing that, and seeing Scarlet Witch just hand him his ass in that scene when Hawkeye comes to get her and she just throws Vision through the floor. That blew my mind. And I'm not a big comic book reader, so I know a little bit about certain things from the comic books, but I was never a big comic book reader myself. So seeing that, because I always used to think, well, Vision's just, you can't beat Vision. Scarlet Witch can beat Vision. They showed you that. She is by far one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful, just in terms of raw power in the MCU, and she just took Vision out like that. Okay, let's get to some of the action. First of all, that opening action sequence with Crossbones and the Avengers taking them on gets overshadowed by the airport scene, and everyone talks about the airport scene, and people forget that action scene at the beginning was actually quite good. They started out using some shaky cam in there, and I was like, oh, please don't tell me they're using this for the rest of the film, because it's just going to get really annoying. And they didn't. They used it a little bit, and then the movie does change tone as the film goes along. And everyone talks about tone changes as bad, and I don't see it that way. A film should be allowed to change its tone and evolve. And this film definitely, it starts in one place tonally, and it ends up in another place by the end of the film tonally, and in a completely different tone. And I really, really respected that about this film, that it progressed like that. So the Black Panther, Bucky, Captain America chase through the apartment and then into the tunnels. Black Panther chasing him. Who the hell is this guy? I'm about to find out. Black Panther jumping on the rooftop, and that awesome shot when he lands and stands up, the light shining on him, and the helicopter bullets just firing off of him. His introduction in this film is so good, and I love that he never truly picked a side. Yes, for lack of a better term, yeah, he was on the Iron Man side purely for his own motivations. And I love the way that his storyline just cut through the middle of everything else that was going on in this film. He wasn't involved in this story, really. He didn't care about what was happening, about the fight between the two sides. He was just out on his own mission, doing his own thing, and that's who T'Challa is. And can we talk about how good here's how good Chadwick Boseman is as Black Panther. That accent that he uses, it's very, very easy to forget that's not how he actually talks. So when I see him on like Jimmy Kimmel or something like that, and he's just talking in his regular American accent, I'm like, that's not how you speak. because it's so well done and you just believe it so well. Unlike, say, Elizabeth Olsen doing her accent for Scarlet Witch, you can tell she's putting on an accent. Well, like, I don't think she's bad in the film. I just think you can tell it's quite obvious that she's trying to do that accent. With Chadwick Boseman, it's just on another level. You just can't tell. He's so good in this film. The character is so well done in this film. It was a great, fantastic introduction. I don't know how they could have done it better. It made sense that he would be in this film. It had purpose. He wasn't just there to be there. Whereas, you know, while I did like the Spider-Man, you know, Spider-Man's involvement in Civil War, Spider-Man was there to be there. He was there because Sony, you know, needed help. And you could have done this movie without Spider-Man. I don't know if you could have done this movie without Black Panther. Maybe you could have, but I don't think it would have been anywhere near as good. Okay, let's talk about Ant-Man. I want to talk about Ant-Man because Ant-Man is one of my favorite MCU characters. It's one of my favorite MCU films. Ant-Man, the first Ant-Man, is in my top 5 favorite MCU movies. And I love Paul Rudd as this character. And look, the character in this film, he has a small part to play, no pun intended. You could say his part does get bigger as that airport scene goes on. And I'm going to, you know, transition into the airport scene here in a second. But I do love that gag when he first gets out of the van and he meets Captain America and he's like all starstruck. And I just thought that was hilarious. That gives me a laugh every time. The humor in this movie is something that is very, very good compared to other MCU films like, say, Guardians 2, where the humor can just get over the top. It can just get too much. It's like, okay, can we just stop telling jokes and actually tell the story? And they balanced it really well in Civil War between, okay, the right time to have a joke is here. And this, you know, we can't have a joke here, but we can have a joke here. And so they worked out where would be most effective to have humor. Can you move your seat up? No. That whole thing is hilarious. So moving on to the airport scene. I'm not going to go through it, you know, step by step and explain what happens, but the airport scene is fantastic. And it's like 17 minutes long. It must be, in fact, it is the only action scene of that length that I can think of that I've seen that I don't ever get bored of watching. You know, you watch Fast and the Furious and those kind of movies and it's vacuous action. It's action with no dramatic purpose. It's fun for about 5 minutes. It's just visual noise, basically. It's fun for about 5 minutes and then you just get bored. The airport scene has dramatic purpose. It has humor in it. It's exciting. It's action-packed, and then you have Ant-Man turning into Giant Man, which was amazing to see. And the fact that when you know that like the directors had to really fight to keep that in because of budget and everything. The airport scene has to go down as not just one of the best comic book scenes of all time. The airport scene is up there, in my opinion, with just the best action scene of all time. It's in that conversation because you know where everyone is in the scene. You don't lose yourself in the scene. You don't get confused as to, well, hang on, he was over there, now he's over there. What happened to, where is she when this is going on? The only character in that entire scene where you kind of go, hang on, what's he doing is Vision. And I understand, because Vision's a very hard, because you can't really have Vision involved in that fight too much, because Vision would just kick everyone's ass like that. You know, aside from maybe Scarlet Witch, Vision would just take everyone out like that. So, and Vision didn't really want to get involved in that fight. His main goal in that fight was to protect Scarlet Witch, and, you know, because they're going to make babies later on. So, the brilliance of the airport scene in that film is, normally, in a traditional sense of a superhero movie, that scene would be the third act climax of the film. It's not. Because, you know, that scene happens and you're like, okay, well, what could possibly come next? You know, the movie's got to end there, right, with the fight.
But wait! There's more!
We get the revelation that Winter Soldier killed Tony's parents. He sees the video, he goes after the Winter Soldier. Cap tries to protect him. And I gotta tell you, rewatching this movie for this review, the Cap, Iron Man, Bucky fight, and then which eventually just transitions into Cap versus Iron Man when Bucky gets taken out, is my favorite sequence in this entire film. The dramatic element of that, of two friends fighting over another friend, one trying to protect, one trying to kill, you know, the idea of keeping sick. I know how you know, devastating it is to have your friends keep secrets from you. We've all been there. So I can really relate to that scene, you know, because I've kept things from friends that I shouldn't have. I've had friends keep things from me that have come out later that have just completely devastated and hurt me very, very much. So I really did relate to that. I mean, I've never had anything that on that level of, like, you know, finding out my friend's friend killed my parents. I've never had that happen, but hopefully none of you guys have ever had that happen either. But we can all relate to some of those feelings that those characters are going through in that scene. The action at the end in that scene is amazing. The three-hander fight between, you know, Cap and Bucky tossing the shield back and forth and beating up on Iron Man. The scene, the moment when Bucky reaches for Iron Man's arc reactor and he's trying to get in there and then he gets his arm blown off. And then the fight between Cap and Iron Man, it's visceral, it's exciting, it's emotional. I flippin' love this movie so much. I really do. And I love the end with Black Panther and Zemo when T'Challa says, you know, you're living because I ain't done with you yet, kid. Like, you know, you're not killing yourself and taking the easy way out of this. I've got bigger plans for you, my friend. I love that entire exchange. Now let's get on to some of the things that I don't particularly like about this movie. There's not much, like, the majority of this film, 95% of this film is so good that any problems I have become this big because it's just, they did so many things right that it's just no real point in talking about the things that they did wrong. But look, Zemo is not the greatest character. I see why he was there. I understand why he's in the story. You needed him to push certain things forward. And it doesn't really make sense of, well, hang on, how did Cap, you know, it's very convenient that Cap, Iron Man, Winter Soldier, Black Panther, and Zemo all ended up in that same place at the same time. It's very, very convenient as to how that all went down. But I still think that the good far outweighs the bad. And can I just talk about the soundtrack for a second? I love the score in this film too. You know, everyone craps on the Marvel score, the Marvel scores for different Marvel films. I actually really like some of the Marvel themes. You know, obviously the Avengers theme is the best one, but I really do like the Captain America theme that they used in Winter Soldier, a bit in the first Avenger, and they also used it in Civil War and expanded and made it a better theme. It's incredible. So anyway, guys, that is my review of Captain America Civil War. Hope you enjoyed watching this video. Please leave it a like, a comment down below, and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Look out for my review and probably a spoilers review as well coming for Black Panther when I see it at the end of this week. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, guys, and I will talk to you guys next time. #TeamCap.